feeling out of control? Find out how to regain control of your finances. Then, what you should do when named executor, and what you can do to reduce your dental costs. All this and more on today's episode of The Wealthy Life. Welcome to The Wealthy Life. Feeling in control of your finances allows you to live a wealthy life, which is more than just money. It's happiness. Joining us today is Lindsay Plumb, founder of the Pretty Money Club, to share tips to stay on top of your finances. Lindsay, welcome to The Wealthy Life.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So what do you love most about helping people with their finances?
I love getting people's time and attention on the things that really matter in life and away from the stress of their finances.
Okay, eliminating stress is always a good thing. So what is the Pretty Money Club all about? What does it mean?
The Pretty Money Club is all about women who feel confident and in control of their finances, no matter how much money they have.
So what inspired you to start the club?
Oh, well, it was, really hanging out with a lot of busy moms and seeing their struggles with either paying bills or staying on track with their budget or understanding retirement, whatever the case may be. They were stressed and they weren't sure where to go. And I thought we should start a place to have those conversations and help them.
So I'm sure you were intentional in coming up with the name Pretty Money.
I was.
What was the story behind that, and what does it really mean to you and to others?
Yeah, so Pretty Money to me is all about confidence and control. Having the confidence to ask questions, to make decisions, and the control of your finances, knowing that, you are making the decisions, not your money controlling you.
Well, it's funny because when I think pretty money, I think, oh, that's such a nice way to look at money, rather than looking at money as an ugly item or something you want more of or something that creates stress. It can be pretty. Absolutely. It can be simple. It can be nice. So what are the most common obstacles you see people having to overcome when it comes to their money?
There's a few really key ones, and one of them I think is not talking about money because they're nervous or they're scared of what the outcome might be or looking like they don't know the answers.
And nobody knows the answers. Well, there are a few experts that know the answers, but the average person doesn't know what they don't know.
Absolutely.
So they feel embarrassed and shamed by it.
Yeah, they think there's one way.
So
and if they don't know, if they don't know that one way, they feel a bit goofy even joining the conversation. And as we know, there's lots of ways, and there's some that are better than others.
Absolutely. It's funny, but it's like talking about illnesses or health or what vehicle you're going to buy. It's one of those things that once you start talking about it, you realize how many other people are maybe going through the same thing. And there's a lot of comfort in knowing that, isn't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. The community in the Pretty Money Club is equally as important as the topics and the content.
So what's another challenge?
Another challenge is overspending. And a lot of the time that is because we're not paying attention to how much we're spending, and we don't know how much we can actually afford to spend. And there's certain times where we don't want to know either of the answers to those questions, but that's where we need to talk about it and look at those things and learn how much we can afford to spend, how much we are spending.
And don't compare yourself to others. Like that's, I think, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make. I remember somebody approached me once and they were in such financial ruin, like they had debt galore. And when I looked at their spending pattern, they were just spending. They were pulling money out of their bank machine every single day and had nothing to show for it. This is kind of funny, but two things that came out of that conversation. One was they didn't realize that the withdrawals out of their bank account were from them. They thought someone was stealing their money. They didn't realize until they looked at their statement they were pulling the money out each and every day. And number two, they based their spending decisions on what the guys down the street were doing. Well, they may have had really good paying jobs, or maybe they're in bad debt too. So don't compare to others.
Totally, yeah. There's a whole spectrum of incomes and different situations, and we're not in the same one as our neighbors.
Okay, so how do you help people differentiate between wants and needs so that it can be intentional spending?
It's so important to know the difference between wants and needs. And, so some of the things that we do are looking back in our statements and in our spending to see where that's going and making a list of, is this a want or is this a need? It's a debate I get in with my members on a regular basis, because what I think is, or what they think is a want, I often don't agree, which sometimes, if we're really, really tight, might even come down to a gym membership, because we could go and run around the block.
That's right.
I'm not saying you should, but you could. And if making your finances work is really important, sometimes those are decisions that need to be made.
So where does everything start? It sounds like budget and cash flow. Is that where you encourage everyone to start?
Absolutely. Yeah, a budget is everything to me in the Pretty Money Club. And that doesn't mean that we're restricting our spending. It just means that we're being in control of our spending, that we're seeing where our dollars are going.
So where can people go to learn more about budgeting?
I'd love for them to go to prettymoneyclub.com/budget makeover. I have a free budget download there and lots of tips to help.
Oh, fantastic. And we've got some great tools on thewealthylife.com as well. Lindsay, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
And when we return, find out what to do when you're named as the executor.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Have you been named to act as an executor and are worried about what it entails? Estate expert Jennifer Hodgson is here to walk us through the process. Jennifer, welcome to The Wealthy Life.
Thanks, Sybil. It's great to be here.
This is so nice to be able to speak to you, even though you're all the way in Toronto. Now, what got you interested in the estate planning process to begin with?
I think when I started earlier in my career as a trust officer, I realized that there's so much that we do in assisting families transitioning wealth to the next generation. And I realized early on that an estate settlement, every single one is unique and every single one is different. And there's so much emotion involved when somebody passes away, and to be able to have an independent professional sort of navigating you through that process, to me, was really rewarding as a career early on. So I stuck with it.
That's great, Jennifer. And when it comes to estate planning, only about 50% of Canadians have a will, but in each one of those wills, they need to appoint an executor. What is the role of the executor?
Well, it's a great question, and it's important for everybody to understand what that role is before they undertake those next steps. So the executor essentially is charged with the administration and carrying out the wishes of the person who's passed away according to their will. And, it can appear to be an honor to be appointed, but there's a lot of steps and a lot of duties that have to be carried out, and it takes a long time. I think most people don't realize that it can take over 2 years to administer an estate.
I don't think people decided that that's what they were going to sign up for. And maybe when they feel it's an honor, it's because somebody has put trust in them. But trusting a person is totally different from, is that person capable and willing to do the job, and can they do it well? So
That's a good question.
Yeah, I know. And what are the qualities then of an executor?
Well, I think that the most important quality is being able to act even-handedly and taking the hat of beneficiary off if indeed you are a beneficiary, and acting as executor at the same time. Being able to be organized, thorough, taking care of everything from asset administration to ensuring taxes get done, and also being really good at communicating and dealing with some of the challenges that can come up. It's always tricky when you're dealing with transferring wealth and money. And family matters too are really tricky. So, I think that the best quality of an executor is somebody that can be really impartial and that has the time and the knowledge to carry it out from beginning to end.
Now, time is a big one. You mentioned earlier it can take up to 2 years. So if you've been appointed executor and have a full-time job and are caring for kids or parents and a busy life, what are the options for those people who don't want to do the job?
And it's really important to know what those options are. So, you know, in my career of 20 plus years working in, in estates and trusts, I think the most important thing is getting advice early on and knowing what options are available. So, there is the route of sort of hiring kind of an a la carte, getting a lawyer to do some pieces, having an accountant, having someone at the bank or an advisor to deal with the bank accounts. But it's sort of a la carte. You're kind of doing it all yourself and then, outsourcing the pieces that you don't have the skill or knowledge to do. The other alternative, which is a great alternative that most people are not aware of, is hiring a trust company. And trust companies have been doing this for over 100 years, and that's what they specialize in. So you're hiring a professional organization that does everything for you. It's a turnkey solution, and oftentimes that's the peace of mind that we feel that we can provide. And it's nice to know that you could still make all the decisions. You can still be sitting in the driver's seat, but you have the breadth and strength of the professional firm behind you.
Oh, phew. So people aren't stuck taking on the role. They can ask for help and they can hire somebody to assist. What do the fees look like?
So it depends. Generally speaking, if you're hiring an accountant or a lawyer, you're going to pay an hourly rate, which is if you just have a couple of small tasks to do or you're just doing probate, usually can be negotiated. But, if you get into lengthy conversations or, you have beneficiary complications and there's lots of calls and lots of work, that those fees add up very quickly. Generally with the trust company, it's the fees are calculated based on the complexity of the estate and the assets involved. And a lot of times, because we can assess that early on, sometimes we're even able to put a flat fee together to look after the work for the family or for the executor. Right. So different ways of looking at it, different approaches. It really depends on, what you're looking for and how much time, as you said, you have to be personally involved in all of this work.
So whether you've already taken on the role of an executor and you're just asking for help, or maybe you are pre-planning and you may want to appoint a trust company to act as executor when the time comes, the fees can be negotiated in advance. Is that correct?
That's correct. And in most provinces, with the exception of Quebec, executors are entitled to compensation, and they can, and that's set by the courts. So either way, whether you're hiring a professional to have peace of mind or you're doing it yourself, there's going to be costs associated to the work. So just knowing all of those things in advance is important.
That's been fantastic. And we have an estate or an executor checklist to help our viewers go through the process and see what's involved. Thanks for being on the show today, Jennifer.
Thank you, Sybil.
And after the break, find out how to reduce dental costs.
The Wealthy Life is brought to you by investment dealer Raymond James. Life well planned. See what a Raymond James advisor can do for you.
Yikes, not another trip to the dentist. What's that going to cost? With us today is dentist Dr. Bell to share some tips on managing your dental expenses. Dr. Bell, welcome to the Wealthy Life.
Thank you for having me.
So what do you enjoy most about being a dentist?
Well, you get to be a healthcare professional, but you also have the freedom. You don't have sort of the ties that bind you if you're in the medical side of things. So you get to decide what you want to do and how you want to do it. And if you want to learn something new, there's always those opportunities to add that to your practice.
And it's a challenging profession. There's a lot of years of schooling. How much schooling goes into it?
Well, it changes for everybody. There's 4 years of dental school, and then your undergrad before that, and some people do a master's in between.
Wow. And then all the practical experience that you need to get along the way. What are the most common dental expenses people face?
For frequency, what most people spend money on most often at the dentist is the hygiene maintenance, coming in to have your cleaning every once in a while.
Yep.
But from a dollar figure over a lifetime, usually you're more on the restorative side. So people tend to spend more in their lifetime on things like fillings and crowns.
Right. And then how about the cosmetic side of dentistry? I know that's when the price tag can go up, up, and up, right?
Yes. So the more high-priced items, things like cosmetic dentistry and implants and bite restoration, that, as far as a factor of the statistics overall, is fairly minor. But when it does happen to you, it is quite significant.
Right. But at least it's optional at that
is.
point. So when we talk about the required dental work that needs to be done, not everyone has a dental plan. And those people that do have a dental plan, maybe it covers some things, maybe it doesn't cover everything. What can people do to plan ahead to cover some of those costs that are maybe unexpected?
I wish I had a more exciting answer for this, but prevention and maintenance are the two biggest things. And so, it's a little bit like when you go to your doctor and we're talking about how to avoid cardiovascular disease or heart disease, and they start to say, well, start with diet and exercise, and you sort of, okay, diet and exercise, and you lean in close for dramatic effect and say, what else do you have? It's the same thing with dentistry. Being very vigilant on your home care, flossing 1 to 2 times a day, brushing twice a day at minimum for 2 minutes, and with good technique. Those are the sorts of things that you can do to really avoid problems in the future. And coming to see us very regularly, just have a second set of eyes and a third set of eyes, have a look at your teeth, see the things that you can't see, and catch things when they're small.
Okay, so what is the proper technique for brushing your teeth for 2 minutes?
Well, okay, there's a way to get actually good technique and the 2 minutes that we encourage if you're using a high-quality electric toothbrush. Now, the numbers that I'm seeing coming out of the literature tend to oscillate around 20% more effective plaque removal. So if you're using the Sonicare toothbrush or the from Oral-B, they have an IO or a Genius. If you're using the higher end ones, they are a bit extortionately priced for toothbrushes, but at the same time, the amount of money that you will save long term is quite impressive because often you can reduce some of the hygiene visits on occasion, and especially with the Sonicare, I've noticed that people with periodontal disease, the amount of inflammation that they have goes down significantly.
And you know what? Flossing is also really good for that, but people don't floss very often, or they maybe say they do. Are those little pick things okay to use? They might be easier for some people.
They're great for children because we're looking at different things on children. Children, we don't worry as much about periodontal disease. We're trying to break up the bacterial colonies in between the teeth. But when it comes to adults, the floss is better. And so you're able to wrap around a little bit better with the floss when you use your fingers. But if you really, really hate putting your fingers in your mouth, there are tools that can help.
Okay, well, I just wish I knew more about this when I was a little girl, because that's when, kids don't take very good care of their teeth, and that's when I had fillings, and guess what happens? I get older. Those fillings need to be replaced.
They do.
Yes, and I don't like sitting in the dental chair.
Nobody does. So I worry about the people that do.
Yes, that's a good point. So prevention is key. Floss, brush, go in for your regular hygiene. If you don't have a dental plan, the hygiene component is really not that expensive, is it?
No, it's not. And what it does do is it actually does reduce your overall cost long term, especially because what you're doing is you're avoiding bigger problems. And so when you have a hygienist that you trust and you can talk about it with them and say, well, how often should I come in? And the hygienist, it's important to remember that they are paid by the hour. They don't have any extrinsic motivation to tell you to come in more often than you need.
So listen to your hygienist. They're
Yes.
being truthful.
What we find is that people that do come in a little bit more often, their long-term costs are less because they don't have to come in for as long appointments, and the amount of inflammation they have is less. And so they're less likely to lose a tooth. They're also having people look at things for them and catching things when they're small, because even something like a small filling is not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but if that can be caught early and you avoid a root canal and you avoid a crown, those are the larger ticket items that can really get you a bit of a surprise when you have to pay for them unexpectedly.
So one last question. Before people retire, should they get a bunch of dental work done to last them?
I can't answer with a very good answer because unfortunately the best answer is it depends. And
Yes.
so I get asked that question a lot, and so especially when people are approaching retirement, they sort of say, well, should I keep my plan going? Should I get the extended plan? Should I get the basic plan? And it's highly dependent on who they are and what they are, and so what's happening inside their mouth. And so when we look at that situation, usually what we do is we say, okay, well, let's talk to the hygienist first, because then you get a baseline cost of how often the hygienist should probably see you. Where I come in at the end is sort of the variable costs, things like restorative work that may need to be done. When we look at a patient, we sort of divide things into 4 categories. We look at the aesthetics, we look at the joint pain, and we look at restorative issues or for biomechanics of the teeth, and we also look at periodontal disease. And so it's the last 2, is the biomechanics and periodontal disease, are really important if you're planning to go on a plan or not. So then we can
So you need advice. So really, viewers out there, book an appointment with your dentist, get a review and assessment to make that decision on your own. Dr. Bell, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Do you have a home office? Find out what expenses you can deduct when we return. Welcome back. Thanks for your emails, tweets, and messages. Today's question is from Tafari. Dear Sybil, I have an office set up at home that I work from. Can I deduct expenses against my income to reduce my taxes? Well, Tafari, it's a great question, and it really does depend. Are you a business owner that runs your business from your home? If so, absolutely. There's a bunch of expenses that you'll be able to deduct against your income. However, if you're an employee of a company that expects you to work from home, you also may be able to deduct certain expenses. But if you're just choosing to work from home now and again, then the answer is probably not. Now, if your employer does require you to work from home more than 50% of the time, and if your home office is a dedicated space only for work use, then your employer will likely need to complete a T2200 for you to submit when filing your taxes so that you can deduct your expenses. Now, as a business owner, some of the most common expenses that you can deduct, they're a little bit higher than those of an employee, include things like the interest on your mortgage, property taxes, house insurance, utilities. Generally, the formula is the percentage of space used for your home office as a percentage of your entire home. If it's, say, 10% of your home, then 10% of all of those expenses are generally deductible against your income. It creates a nice incentive for people to work from home. I would encourage you to go to cra.ca for full details and run it by accountant before you make a decision. And that wraps up this edition of The Wealthy Life, helping you make smart financial decisions. Join the Wealthy Life Club by becoming a member at thewealthylife.com. You'll get access to everything you need to live your version of the wealthy life.